Hello everyone, I'm Barry Tatum. Hope you're doing well, and welcome to this special edition of Talking with Tatum. On this episode, we'll hear from Wilson County Mayor Randall Hutto to find out where we stand with the March 3rd tornado and now the coronavirus epidemic, and how is county government dealing with these two unforeseen and unexpected crises, and what we can expect over the next few months as we recover. Stay here. Talking with Tatum starts now. Mayor Hutto, thank you for joining us on this special edition of Talking with Tatum.
Glad to be here, Judge.
Well, this is kind of a trying time for Wilson County, and part of what we wanted to do with this show is give people an idea of what the county mayor and county government and all of our citizens right now are having to deal with. But in the span of just a few short weeks, you've had two critical situations show up. We had the tornadoes at the first part of the month, and now we're in the process of dealing with the COVID-19 virus. And so let's back up, if you will, or however you would like to start, to tell us about, let's start with the tornadoes, because that was you don't see that one coming, literally. It had seconds, if any, notice, and we had some fatalities and a significant amount of damage. So tell us what the county has been dealing with that issue.
Well, Judge, that happened about 1 o'clock to 12:30 on the night of, or the morning of March the 3rd. And it actually hit my house, and so therefore I remember it very well. And since that time, we've been in a whirlwind, really, to tell you the truth, no pun intended on that one. But it's just really been kind of a fast-paced deal to handle a natural disaster and now a pandemic all at one time here. As we said, starting back March the 3rd, and today I think is April the 3rd.
It's been a month.
It's been a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been a busy month. When you run for office, I mean, you don't anticipate having these kind of days. You certainly don't look forward to having these kind of days. No. But it's good to know that someone's in charge and someone is there to make decisions, because that's a big part of your responsibility.
Judge, I think the honor goes to the people, the boots on the ground. We are the mouthpiece as being the mayor or being the mayor's office, but we've had a lot of remarkable people to come in and make things happen. Back during the tornado, they were emergency services folks that were going everywhere, and that's agencies all across this county. As you know, that tornado started in Nashville and made its way to Cookeville. We had 3 deaths, as you know, as well, and but all agencies, as I saw them work together over that period of that first week, seeing people come out and do things with utility companies, the local police departments, local fire departments, EMA for us. It really was a blessing to see that happen. So many times we hear on the news, or you might even go down to, let's drill down to Wilson County, the 109 divide. You did not see that at all. You saw people pulling together, working together, and helping their neighbor out. Not only at the agency level, but at family level. Mm-hmm. Everybody was checking on everybody. That night at 1 o'clock, and I'll just go back to my neighborhood there, when we actually realized what had happened, and we're out in the yard, there are other people going around, hey, are you guys okay? Mm-hmm. And that was happening all across this county. And so for that to happen and it be a disaster, there were a lot of positive things that came out of it. If you traveled across the county right now, it being a month later, there's been a lot of things that have been done to make things better. I have to brag on our road commission to start with them going out, and people have brought all of their stuff to the side of the road, and the road commission had the job to go around and pick it all up. And we started out with getting the debris up, the tree limbs and the tree trunks and that vegetation part. And it's a lot when you get to thinking about it. Now the city of Lebanon and the city of Mountain View took care of their own individual cities as far as that goes, and they attacked that as well to begin with. But we had help from the TVA, the National Guard, the Baptist Relief Association, TDOT. They all came around and helped us, gave us manpower, dump trucks, knuckle booms to go, and then Cindy Lynch at the landfill, they took all this in. So they have it all out there, and then what they will do is have it all ground up, and we'll work with FEMA to get some reimbursement for that, but normally the reimbursement on these dollars are 75 cents on the dollar. So it's still going to cost the taxpayer, the 25 cents to get this done. So it is a hit on the tax roll as well. But that part has kind of been done now. So as you ride, me and Mr. Murphy rode last Friday and just kind of looked at our area, and we're getting a lot better there. And you may think that's not a lot, but when you wake up in the morning, you still got blue tarps on your house is still a mess. But when you look out in your environment, your front yard is better. You get a little bit of better feel. And then when the sunshine comes out, which we hadn't had a lot of lately, that gives you a little more hope as well. Now, what's still out there right now is what we call C&D, the stuff that it takes to build a house with. The brick, the sheetrock, the tin, the shingles. So that stuff is still in a pile out in front. And then also what you've got is things that were destroyed inside the home, right. Mattresses and those things. And so they brought those out to the road as well. So each city and county now has hired a monitor, one that will go around and make sure they document this stuff so we can turn it into FEMA to get reimbursement. And we're going to hire a contractor. They'll go out and pick up this debris now because the Road Commission doesn't really have the mechanisms to do that, nor do we have somewhere to put it right now, so we'll have to haul it to Smith County. Lebanon hauls theirs to Rutherford County. So that's going on now. But in the meantime, I will say this, a lot of church groups, a lot of different ones, the people in our really area was a Pastor Dickerson with the Jesus of Latter-day Saint Church. He brought his crew out every weekend, and Frankie Neal and Rockwood, Lincoln Young, they supplied the dumpsters, which were paid for by Two Rivers Ford. Tammy Jacobs at Two Rivers Ford gave us $25,000 and said, hey, where can you use this at, Mayor? And I said, well, we've got people out there wanting to do work. We got houses that need to get rid of stuff, but we got really nowhere to take it. So they paid for the dumpsters. The volunteers put the stuff in the dumpsters. Lincoln and Frankie Neal hauled them off and got them dumped, and that got a lot of stuff cleaned up. So those things are happening really all over the county, and so by and large, it'll be a while before we get back to normal there with our places. You still see those blue tarps, and with COVID-19, you got places that, like the window places, that have really kind of shut down. So that's going to slow that process down. But on the tornado side, we are coming out of that. There is called Wilson Recovery, or Wilson Recover. And it's really two pastors from, and a group from Mount Jewett, and two pastors from Lebanon, and another group that have come together. And so if you go to that website,
Wilson Recover.
It's Recover Wilson.
Recover Wilson.
I said it wrong.
Okay.
Recover Wilson. You can go on there, and right now, if you have a need, you can type it in and put it in for whatever you might need. Maybe you need a light bill paid. Maybe you need a gas bill paid. Maybe you need your rent paid. Maybe you need some supplies of some kind, or maybe you need something done. You can go on there and fill that out, and somebody monitors that every day. Maybe you're out here, like I saw somebody yesterday on Facebook, that are kind of cleaning up their house and saying, hey, I've got an extra bed, I've got an extra dresser drawer, maybe that don't date me too far. But you can put that you've got some wants to give, or some things that you can supply for somebody. You can put that on there, and that group is linking that together. So they have really come together, not only for right now. They're working through John Grant with Compassionate Hands to also give some money to him. That also Community Foundation is supplying some of that money. So there's another place to really go, and if you have a need to go to get those resources. But they're not only doing it for now, but they're looking now long term. How can we be effective and be ready to go the next time this happens?
Well, hopefully it'll be a long time before the next time happens, but disasters, whether it's flood, fire, storms, are going to occur on somebody's watch at some point.
Yes, sir.
Going back to something that you mentioned about not only the county employees with the Road Commission and Steve Murphy and his crew, but the law enforcement, WEMA, ambulance service, it was truly an all-hands-on-deck moment.
It was, and for them to be able to communicate across agencies, radio-wise, which a lot of us don't think about, that's a big deal. You'll hear that from time to time come up in county government. Hey, we need to upgrade our radio. Hey, we need to be compatible with Lebanon or Mount Juliet. And a lot of times it's a lot of dollars. But in a situation that happened there, it was so important to be able to communicate. So I think we didn't miss a beat. I really brag on those people, but it strained them. But, you know, I remember Sheriff Bryan saying, he said, you know, I think it's 10-8 was coming across the radio. And evidently 10-8 means, hey, I'm on call, I'm on duty. They wouldn't plan to be there.
Right.
They just said, hey, we're en route, where you need me to go. And that's what we had from all of our folks. And it didn't just happen for just that night. You know, you think about that night at 1 o'clock, people got up and they worked around the clock, but they kept going. That was 7 days a week, 24 hours a day for a lot of them that didn't miss a beat. It's their agency, but then their people worked 7 days a week because you just didn't have any subs to put out there. And so I really applaud all of those county employees as well as the city employees and the agencies. Their leaders communicated. I'll get phone calls every day. Hey, what do you need? How can I help you? And we tried to return that same phone call and really work together. Lee Clark, Andy Barlow, Kenny Martin, I can just go on down the line, William Glover, Mike Justice, you know, all of those folks that did some great things together. You know, and I just want to, I'll brag on our Lebanon Police Department because Tim Murray over there and his crew, you know, when we went to visited some of these places like Triple Crown and Mount Juliet, just to see the devastation, see how we could help, you couldn't hardly get around, Judge, for all the cars. So when Lebanon realized that, hey, if we've got all these volunteers, but that they all drive to that one place, you can't move. So they loaded up buses and said, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to bus our people out there, turn them loose. And that was a huge, smart thing to do. I look at Mount Juliet, and Mount Juliet was having meetings and trying to get their organizations together. And they were having a hard time getting everybody to come together to talk. And so they said, hey, Pastor, don't bring your congregation and volunteers, just you come. And so they gathered leaders, deployed those people back to their homes or where the volunteers were and dispersed those people there. Again, another smart move and things that, you know, people just did on the cuff.
Well, you know, that's the great thing about ingenuity and people coming together from all walks of life is because they've encountered crisis either personally or professionally, and they're able to bring that skill set to a crisis time.
Yes, sir.
You know, something I also want to mention here, I've got some family out in Leeville, and they were right in the crosshairs just down the road from you, from your storm damage. And I was out there a couple of days helping with them. But the school system had school buses, subdivision right down the road. There were 2 school buses down there, yards filled with young people with their parents or chaperones, however you want it. And they were, people were cutting up trees and kids were dragging the stuff down to the streets. Just, it was so heartwarming under the circumstances to see people come together.
No question.
And you talk to folks that not just from our area, but had come down from Portland, from Clarksville, from Smyrna, not just emergency workers. You'd see somebody that would say City of Smyrna Street Department, but you would have talking with somebody out there working, and they would say, well, I know these people. You know, I worked with them at wherever in the past, and I'm concerned about them. I'm here over to help. Really warms your heart about the volunteer spirit.
It does, and not only were from those neighboring cities, and those neighboring cities like Gallatin, Laverne, and Murfreesboro did send city workers here to do stuff with Public Works, but you're right, the citizens came from those counties. But you know, we had people like, there was another group that I saw at Triple Crown, I think, was 8 Days of Hope, and they came from other states.
Wow.
And came in here and stayed in hotels and worked for quite some time. And so, you know, that part was good. That part is what makes us a good country.
Well, moving on to our other issue that we have, and you mentioned it makes us a good country. This is not only just a national issue, but it's an international issue. Yeah. But the COVID-19 virus, another crisis that's happened up in the last, really has gotten focused in the United States in the last 30 days. You know, from my perspective, watching local news, trying to keep abreast of what's going on, and it changes from day to day. We hear these various terms about declaring a state of emergency or restricting travel or shelter in place or safer at home. Those are all kind of confusing terms, something that I never dreamed that I would have to experience in my lifetime. And as a representative of local government, of Wilson County, all of our citizens here, what would you like to share about your focus in your position as to how to address this issue, or more importantly, what we can do as individual citizens to spread the word, to be safe, and take the steps to keep this from being even worse than what it is?
Well, Judge, you're right about the terms, and it does get confusing in the Executive Order 23 that came out yesterday that kind of backed up 22 from Governor Lee. You know, those are confusing to people from time to time, and only if this is my day job, and so I do have a chance to study it and get acclimated with all the information that comes in, and you'll see a folder here beside my chair that simply, it's information that's come in just in the last couple of weeks, and it's overwhelming, really. But to make it simple for me, I guess I've looked and said, we've got a virus that's attacked the world, and there's not a cure as we know it right now, so we're having to deal with it. And doctors and medical personnel are doing their best to find that cure, but until they find that cure, the only thing we can do is try to do our best to keep it from spreading. And that, you can put that on government if you want to do that, and we do need to do our part. But it really boils back down to the individual. If I go out and make sure that I feel like everybody has the virus and I do not come in contact with them, then I've protected myself. I've not only protected myself, but I've protected my family when I go home to them. And then if I say, hey, I've got my father-in-law and mother-in-law that are up in years, and one of them has COPD, and I don't need to go there. I need to stay away from there because I could have it. I am out in the public. And so I think we all must take the responsibility as an individual to say, what can I do to make a difference? This is a war, and really we're all soldiers. And so we have a responsibility not only to ourselves, but more so to everybody else that's around us.
Well, when a war, you envision there being an enemy, somebody you can identify.
Yes.
Here, we're not able to see anything. I can look at you, you can look at me. I can't tell whether you're carrying the virus or you may either one.
Right.
And it's I view it as a challenge in a lot of ways to what exactly am I doing to prevent? How effective is this? I hear that I should wear a mask. I hear that I don't need to wear a mask. And that goes for anybody out there. Do you have any suggestions? Obviously, we're not wearing masks here in doing this, but what would be your recommendations for people if they have to get out, to go to the grocery store, to go to the gas station, to go to the pharmacy?
Yes.
What would you recommend?
Well, I go back to the war example, as you said, and maybe from what I was a history teacher at Lebanon High School and studied the Vietnam War for a while, and that conflict or war that we had there, there was a lot of confusion about, well, who was really the enemy there, because a lot of times the Vietnamese and those different ones looked the same, and
Right.
so there was an issue there, and I think it's that way here. We don't know who the enemy is as far as a virus goes, because you can't tell that. So you must assume everybody has one. Now, as you assume that, then you just do every precaution you can. From what we know so far, information changes every day, is that this virus is not airborne unless it's in the form of a droplet in airborne, such as a sneeze. So that protection of that mask is not necessarily, in my mind, there to help you from breathing in somebody, but it's to keep you from infecting somebody else when you sneeze.
Okay.
So I don't believe that it is airborne, but those droplets that come from my breath, as you see if you were to fog up a mirror, for example, those droplets on there is what we do not want to come in contact with. Therefore, the social distancing idea of 6 feet. Let's stay 6 feet apart so I don't come in contact with that. Now, wash my hands. So why do I wash my hands? Because you might have sneezed over here or somewhere else and got it on some item or object, and so I touch it. I thought about it, just the other day. What are the things out there that I really maybe don't think a lot about? I went to Mr. B's last Sunday, washed my car. I was inside the car, no problem. But when I go to get the vacuum cleaner out, everybody touches it.
Gas pumps.
Gas pumps are another one. And so my phone, I touch it all the time. The credit card I get back from the cashier, although I have noticed them now wearing gloves more, which is a good thing. So those are things that I just have to be aware of. I went to Jersey Mike's after work of the night, got there, and I made myself be cautious. There's a guy in front of me ordering a sandwich. I need to stay back. Normally, I would have not thought that at all. And so I think as an individual, that's where I make a difference. We've reached out to our chambers and said, hey, could you do 4 things for us across this county? Number one, those factories that are still deemed essential. Can you go into those factories and see if they're practicing good behaviors? Like when they break for lunch, do they all go to the same place? What are they doing as they transport things back and forth if you're a logistic company? But do everything you can to help them. There are a lot of guidelines that the health department's putting out that they can use, and so we want to be of help to that company. A lot of them are checking temperatures when they come in, and so we're trying to be of help there. The second thing we ask our chambers to do is go to every retail store that's out here. Ask them to do 2 things for us. One, limit less than 10 people at a time in your store. Now, if you're a large department store, that number can gain a little bit, but help your employees that are in there out, but the people going in as well. So limit that number, and then also put markings on the floor at the self-checkout line or at the cashier line, 6 feet apart, and then ask those people to monitor it. Sometimes I think, Judge, people may think of kind of like I used to with a tornado, which I won't anymore, is that when I see that warning, oh, it's for somebody else. When I see that disaster,
Yeah.
And so we still have some people that may think, it won't get me. We're talking about somebody else. But this is real. It will get us. Our numbers continue to climb. They went from 45 yesterday to 62. It comes out every day at 2 o'clock, and so we monitor that. So we know that it's growing here. It's evident in Wilson County, so we must be ready. So we ask to do 2 things there with those, and that is limit the number of customers coming in if you can, and also those markings. And the last thing we said, ask every one of your businesses to look individually at themselves and say, are we really essential right now? Do we really need to be open? Is it, and if you can close down, then it'll keep people from coming out. And so everything that we can do, we should do. And at the end of the day, we'll look back and hopefully, the number that we didn't have, which we won't know, was what we saved. But it will be some of those people that, that maybe were thinking, that's not me, that got somebody infected, and because of the measure that they put in, an individual business owner, it helped out.
Well, what would you say to a person, though, who says, well, it's essential. My family has to eat. I have to pay rent. I have to pay my mortgage. And I get my income from my job or my business.
Yeah.
And while it may not fall under the classic definition of being an essential business, such as a pharmacy or a doctor's office, a grocery store, the other that they have listed on there. But if a person says it's essential for me to be able to support my family, how do you balance that with the scaling back?
And I think that's probably what the governor has been trying to balance for quite some time now, is how, and when he says economy, I think sometimes people may say, well, you're putting economy over lives here. We're talking about health, Governor. But I think what he's saying too is, yes, so I could die of the virus, but I also could die of mental depression. I could die of suicide because of the situation I've gotten into here economically.
Right.
And so I do think that's important. And there are 3 loans out there right now. There is a disaster relief loan, a loan assistance program for businesses, private nonprofit, homeowners, and renters that you can go and get a loan at low interest rates to help you get over this hump. Okay, now there's an SBA loan as well, which is called Economic Injury Disaster Loans. You must pay it back, but it's also another loan that will help you get that small business over the hump if you close. And then there's one that you do not have to pay back. It is called a Paycheck Protection Plan. If you keep your employees on the payroll, even though you're closed, there's a loan you can apply for there. This information we're putting out, we give it to Ms. Teresa here to put out on TV. We've got it in the mayor's office. We're trying to get those informations out to people so that if they want to do this, they can find some assistance. We know the stimulus check is coming, of course. There's expanded unemployment benefits out there. I got a call today from Under Armour. They've laid off several people because of lack of production. So there's no question that it's a tough call.
Yeah.
And you have to balance that call. Now, according to the governor's order, making it mandated from Executive Order 22 to 23, if you do not follow that order, it's a Class A misdemeanor.
Okay.
You more than anybody else would know what that is. And it's, from what they told us today on the mayor's meeting, it's kind of like a DUI. So it is enforceable. And they gave a TCA code. You probably know that one as well.
It's going to be under Title 39, but
I think so. TCA 58-2-120 is what the executive order was. And then, of course, you give the governor the opportunity to use local police and sheriff to patrol that. And that's TCA 58-2-107 E and F.
that follows under his executive powers that he goes.
Yes, sir.
Now, as we're wrapping up here in the last few moments, you mentioned with the governor's office, you mentioned the mayor's meetings. You got a lot of moving parts here, and I guess you're in communication with adjoining counties, perhaps counties all across the state, maybe even out of state somewhere, about what are y'all doing to address this? How are y'all handling that? Has that been part of the job responsibility, part of the learning curve as well?
It really is, and that's been a tremendous help because the state agencies and stuff, Tim Defender with the health department here and various other state organizations have reached out and said, hey, here's some information. This is good for your people. This is how you take care of your people. The local EMAs have met as what we call Zoom right now, but we listen to that call every day. I left a 9 o'clock call this morning to come over here where all the city and county mayors with the Middle Tennessee region got on there and said, hey, I got this problem. Y'all got an answer. Here's what I'm doing. Here's best practices. So that's been very beneficial. And so the sharing of the information really helps. And, as I went back, I guess, and thought, what are the positives that will come from this? And, I got to thinking I won't take things for granted anymore. I definitely have become more tech savvy through this situation. It's taught me how to communicate in ways I never knew how to. Our first county commission meeting will be here in the third Monday in April, and it's going to be electronically for the first time, to my knowledge, ever. And we're going to work our way through that, but we got to continue to conduct business. I think it's helped us put things in perspective. On what's really important. I think back on the planning side of this, we had to do an RFP for a monitor on this with the FEMA in order to get all the money we can get back for the taxpayer and hire a contractor to pick up this stuff. We will have that online now forever. And when that contract rolls out, we'll do another bid. And that way, when this happens, we're ready to hit the ground running right then with that monitor and with that contractor. I think you'll see education change. They'll be ready the next time this happens to do distance learning through their technology ways because, we've got a lot of people out there right now that are saying, I'm getting behind. How can I learn? Can we do it online? So I think you'll see some improvements there. I must have hands off to there's 1,000 sites in Tennessee right now, over 1,000 of feeding sites for children. And Wilson County has really got an A in that category because people like Beth Petty and Annie Barger and those people have made sure that the kids have been able to have a meal that normally counted on being in school to get that meal. So there are a lot of things that will come that will be good out of this. We've had to spend more time with family, good or bad, but we've had to spend more time there. And I think the freedoms that we just took for granted when we get a chance to go back, that will be we'll enjoy that a little bit more. And I think people think a little bit more about the hereafter because this is a sobering time for us. We will I do believe that we will come out on the other side. I think we are a while away from that. And even when we get on a cure is what I guess I pray for every day. If we find a cure, then that gives us a pretty good ray of hope. But it'll be like the tornado, I think, Judge. Before, when I saw a warning, I didn't think a lot about it. Now that I've lived through one, when I see a warning, I'm going to have a different feeling. And I think throughout our country for a while, because we didn't see this coming, as you said, like the tornado, you know, we always, for a little while, I think, will be looking, what's on the other side of the mountain? That's going to change our perspective.
Well, perspective is an interesting word, and I think it will change our perspective. One, as a student of history, former history teacher, in 1918, 1919, there was a worldwide Spanish flu pandemic. And I've seen numbers that indicate that some 500,000 Americans died in that 1 year period of time, and up to 100 million worldwide during that period of time. My father worked at DuPont down in Old Hickory. Mm-hmm. And during the First World War, that DuPont plant made gunpowder. And the influenza, Spanish flu epidemic hit. And at that time, there were 15 to 20,000 people who worked at that plant. It hit them and they were dying so fast they couldn't have individual funerals. Later on, in the 50s or 60s, they were expanding the plant, and my dad told me they were excavating the ground. They uncovered a mass grave that people had forgotten at that time from just 40 or 50 years before. Old timers remembered it, but nobody had taken the time to mark it. But it's amazing how we forget as we heal, and perhaps this is a way for us to use it as a life lesson. And I've heard it say that necessity is the mother of invention, and you also have to have experience some downtimes, some hard times, to appreciate the view from the summit of a mountain. So it's an opportunity for us to realize what's important: our family, our faith, our future, and that of our kids and our grandkids. Just how truly vulnerable and interconnected we are.
You go back to, let's say, February the 15th, you know, and we don't have that same perspective as we have today. And I heard somebody say the other day that I thought was profound, and they said, you know, as we enter this time, and we talked about feeding a while ago, and they said, a man that is full has many problems. A man that's hungry has one problem.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so our life focus has become a little simpler.
Well, well, listen, thank you for your time. And again, if folks are interested in some of these programs,
Yes.
loans, they can contact the county mayor's office.
Yes.
Would you share your telephone number?
615-444-1383.
1383 is the telephone number, 444. And also you can communicate through the county government website.
If you watch, of course, our channel here, Teresa Bush is putting that out daily, all that information. We have given it to MJ at WANT for her to go. It is on our website always, and we try to put this out periodically on our Facebook, so we'll roll one, then we'll roll another one. So we continue to try to surf that out there, but when in doubt, just call our office.
Well, thank you for your time. Thank you, staff, for the time that they've been putting in with this. I know that it's not just a one-man job.
Oh, no.
You've got a great group of people helping you up there.
Yes.
And we'll try to do this again as we get further into it and get a better idea about where we're headed, and perhaps we'll be able to fine-tune that perspective a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir.